Chapter 1. The beginning of a novel can start any old place, but many writers, myself included, believe providing a detailed setting of your novel from the onset is crucial for the reader to establish a mental picture of where the story is taking place. The setting could be a forest or a suburb or a desert. It could be Las Vegas or the Kremlin or a Nicaraguan jungle. Wherever the novel is taking place, you should provide enough description for the reader to have a mental picture. In today's marketplace, it's no longer just okay to provide a basic setting and move on. The setting needs to pop out for the reader. They need to feel like they're walking through a jungle or flying through the air just after having jumped out of a plane. Think about using the five senses when starting your novel and create a mental picture by way of setting for your reader. In this scenario, I have the novel starting at night to provide cover of darkness for the antagonist. Your novel may not. It's okay and not totally necessary. Speaking of the antagonist, providing the initial description of the antagonist is a delicate task in a whodunit. You want to provide the reader with enough information to the antagonist's physical description that they can get a mental picture while avoiding some identifying facial or physical attributes. Things to possibly include here could be mannerisms that only the antagonist has. Later on in the book, the antagonist will be introduced as a regular character, and this mannerism could be used in that character description. But be careful not to make it something so obvious that the reader automatically knows it's the antagonist. So after introducing the antagonist, who is likely stalking a house or a barn or something, introduce his victim. The initial victim or victims in the novel are not entirely important. However, they are important enough to have some basic background on them and a description of their surroundings. Again, think mental picture for the reader. So although you want to limit the amount of characters you give a point of view to, you might want to consider allowing this character a point of view so the reader can feel something for them. This makes their killing in the near future more exciting for the reader. And if you wanted to, you could have the initial victim be an important person in the community to making the urgency to solve the crime even more so. As we move on and the protagonist is introduced to new clues, he could find out this important person was, involved in some sort of a conspiracy. But that's down the line and just something to brainstorm as we move forward. Either way, the classic whodunit mystery starts with action and someone has to be killed. In keeping the initial victim or victim's point of view, describe something in their possession that may be of some controversy. It may be something they are aware of that they have, or something that they are not aware of that they have in their possession. It could be a report about a controversial topic, or a videotape of a murder, or a map to the location of additional murder victims, or whatever. Whatever it is, this is the main piece of evidence the antagonist is currently after, and what the protagonist will be looking to identify throughout the novel. It's also worth noting that whatever the evidence is, the antagonist will be identified once the protagonist locates it. What I mean by that is the main evidence has to be important enough that if in the hands of law enforcement or your investigator, the antagonist's identity will be known. This in itself creates enough urgency for the antagonist to have to kill just to get it back. As your scenes unfold and you've provided enough information on the victims to make the reader care about them, and you've provided enough information about the main evidence to have the reader understand why the antagonist needs it, now all you have to do is increase the tension as the antagonist closes in on the unsuspecting victims. So as the chapter increases in tension, the antagonist gets into position to kill the victims. What's important here is the antagonist's weapon of choice needs to be described in some detail. Its impact to the victims' bodies as they're killed or whatever. It'll be found later, so this detail is important. As a side thought, the tension in this first chapter has to be off the charts. Many literary agents only read the first 50 pages when they're interested in your plot. So make this chapter really feel and make darn sure your writing is perfect when you get to that final revision of your manuscript. So to recap chapter 1, you've introduced a detailed setting, an antagonist, a victim, the main evidence everyone is after, and you've knocked off one or more people. It's not a bad start. Let's move on to chapter 2.